Hello there, welcome to Forever and Ever with Olajumoke Adewumi. Today I have with me Reverend Omisade, the Deputy General Overseer of the New Covenant Church, and who are also my pastors. Like you and I, they have gone through a journey in their relationship, and I believe that their story is what we need to hear and learn from. So come along with me. Thank you. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for accepting my invitation for coming on the show today. And I believe the reason why I wanted you on this show is that our viewers out there can learn from you. And I think it's something that we all need to hear from, that we all come to this life, things happen, but then we can learn from it and move on. And that's part of our story today. I know, sir. I know that years ago you've been married for 4 years.
34 years.
Yeah, 34 years. And I know that when you met her, it was at the architectural firm you were both working with, and she was on a student placement. Was it a student placement?
1 year
internship.
Yeah,
internship, when she was studying in the United Kingdom. And you met her, and then you just saw her, and that this is the one for me. I know that's a quick thing. Most people would not necessarily be able to relate to that. And I know that you've come a long way in that journey. And one thing I wanted to ask, that were you both committed Christian during that period?
No. We both came from Christian background, and I'll define that appropriately as church-going families. When she was in the preliminary course in the University of Ife in Nigeria, she had accepted Jesus into her life as Lord and Savior.
Okay.
But she wasn't properly followed up. Okay. So that experience cooled down.
Okay.
And so you can't say she was a fervent practicing Christian. When we met, okay, I would still say she was a churchgoer. I wasn't born again.
Okay.
I wasn't a practicing or fervent Christian. So I was an unbeliever when we met.
Okay. So when you saw her, I know you mentioned that you had a dream, and it was from then that you decided that this is the woman you. Do you think that's something normal that everybody goes through? Is just something that God is giving you a message through, or is you just? I mean, you were not definitely, but what was the message there for you?
Well, from hindsight now, and knowing what I know now, God has a plan for everybody, whether you know Him or not, and He tends to speak to us in various ways. Even if you are not a Christian, God still tries to get across to you. When I met her, I saw her for the first time in the same office that we worked at the day I went there. I was sitting down in the reception, and she was coming down the flight of stairs, and she made an impression on me. Subsequently, we began to work together, and then we started to engage as boyfriend, girlfriend. So that's where our relationship started.
Okay.
So a couple of months down the line, I now had this dream that I took her to my parents' hometown. And when we got to my house, my father's house, my mom was in a particular setting doing dishes. And she left my side and went and took the dishes from her. But I didn't share that with her. So when it was getting close to the end of her industrial placement in Nigeria and she needed to come back to the UK, she said to me that, and I see her parents on a regular basis. I go to their house almost every day because their house is a few minutes walk from the office where we worked. So I've known her parents very well. I do eat lunch there most of the time. So she was saying I've gotten to know her parents very well, but she hardly knows my parents. She's met my mom before. That if I take the relationship as seriously as we say, then she would like me to take her to my parents to introduce her as my intended wife, which I agreed to. So we now went, which will be a day like 6 months after the dream that I had. So when we got to my parents' house on that day, it was the dream that I saw exactly that played itself out. My mom was where I saw her and she left my side and took the dishes from her. And then I said that wasn't a coincidence, that I've seen this 6 months before. So I took it that this is God speaking to me, that this is my wife. So that's how I related to that dream.
Was that dream a parable to appear like the qualities you should look for in a wife, or how would that translate?
Well, first, the way I took it was that this is God speaking to me. Okay. But now, how I related to it, if I was going to explain it, my mom was very dear to me. She had me when she was past even childbearing age. She's had like 8 children before me, and only 2 are surviving. So she had me very late, and so I lived a very sheltered life, and she was very close to me. And when I looked deeper into that, I saw that she will be one that will take care of my mom. So that's another meaning that I gave to it.
Yeah. Well, I'm just looking at the background now. A lot of people will say, oh, this man is a mommy's boy, how am I going to cope? Because it's going to be a great issue, help me out there. So I'm just thinking, how are you able to reconcile your mom, who obviously doted on you, and your new wife? How are you able to walk around the two? I mean, I'm trying to think of the scenario now. 2 women in your life. Were you able to balance it?
Well, even though at the initial stage when we married, I wasn't a Christian, I think I can only say that God had helped me in this journey, because from the moment that we married, there are some things I began to do, not that I had learned from anybody, but I began to put them in place. And I look back now and I saw that it could only have been God that was helping me. Some of the attributes which, in a sense, were what will make for a good marriage, and some of the decisions that will make for a good marriage, I began to put them in place right from the beginning. And one of them was to define within me the role of my mom and the role of my wife. So immediately after our wedding, she became the most important person in my life. And I put a system in place in our home that, mothers tend to have quiet moments or separate moments with their children, like African background. If your mom wants to talk to you, she'll call you aside or take you into the room so nobody's there. So whenever my mom is with me and my wife is there, I didn't allow a situation that my mom would call me aside to talk to me. I would say, she's your daughter. Whatever you want to say to me, you are free to say to me in our presence. Also, in the African culture, once you begin to work and earn money, you now begin to take care of your parents. You begin to give them money regularly. So also I put it in place that anything that I wanted to give to my mom, she would be the one to give her. Initially she was refusing, but I now said that you had better take it because that's how it will happen. So God began to help me to try and do things like that, which is not that I've learned anywhere, but it worked it worked well for us.
That's very well. Thank you, sir. I know in marriage, I didn't know there was a particular period that Sister Timike had to move to the United Kingdom with the children. Was there what led to that? What prompted that, sir?
From my perspective, it was a financial decision. From her perspective, it was a spiritual decision. Because before that happened, she had rededicated her life to Jesus Christ. So she was now properly born again. She understood what Christianity meant. I wasn't born again then. And so, being that she studied architecture in the United Kingdom, had our children then in the United Kingdom, but we were both living in Nigeria now with the children at that point. The government in Nigeria, the exchange rate in Nigeria used to be £1 to 1 naira. The pound and the naira was almost equal in value. So then Nigerian economy began to have problems. And it came to the point that the government now devalued the naira. And £1 was now 20 naira. So I looked at that and I said, okay, if my wife goes back to England to work, she will be earning quite substantial now in Nigerian terms. So that's my own motivation, that maybe you and the children should go back to the UK and work. And she accepted. But then God had been dealing with her, or she and God had been talking about other things, which helped her to make that decision, which was different from my own reason. So maybe she wants to explain that, or do you want me to throw that?
Well, at this point, I can ask her then, what was your perspective on that before we move on?
It's quite right that it wasn't just financial, it was both financial and spiritual. Because, yes, like you said, Nigeria had problems then. But for me, it was spiritual because I had, somebody had given me a devotional that I use every day. And on that particular day that I actually suggested it to me, I had read from the book of 1 Kings 17, where Elijah had been asked by God to leave where he was. The brook had dried up. You know, there was famine in the land, and Elijah was being fed by a raven. And then when the brook dried up, God had asked him to move and go to a widow in Zarephath, and she would take care of him. So I had read that, and the story in that context was that God can ask you to move anywhere, anytime, and it's just good to be obedient. So I read that morning. Because he wasn't born again, I didn't share. We don't share things like that at that level. So later in the day, when he was saying to me, you know what, I think maybe you and the children should go back to England and you'll be earning a lot more. It was like, when I read that, I knew God was speaking to me. It just clicked into place. So I was like, oh yeah, great, you know. But we didn't have any money to even travel at that time. And we said, if God provided for us, that would be like another sign to confirm that he wanted us to leave. So I think some money came in at that time that we had to buy the tickets. And also it was a time that we needed to actually be separate for a while, so that, because he found Christ while I was away. So I also believe that it was well designed that I wouldn't be there, so that he could spend time to find Christ by himself. So that's my version of the...
Obviously before, I wouldn't say that the conversion took place immediately, sir, was it? The conversion between when she traveled to England and you giving your heart to it, was it an immediate occurrence, or was it a process of time?
It would be more like a process. So after they left, before she left, in one of the fellowship meetings that she had attended, she had bought a book titled "For Men Only," for me, which I just put on the side somewhere. So after they left, I now had more time to myself. So one of these days, I picked up the book and I began to read. And it was presenting a Christian's perspective to marriage, how a husband should relate to the wife. And I got hooked, and I read the whole book to the end, and when I'd finished, I said, so I had to have been a horrible person, because everything that I'm reading in this book, I'm none of it. So if this is what God expects a marriage to be like, or a husband to be like, I've fallen far, far short of these expectations. But then I reflected, and I made up my mind that I want to be that person that I'm reading about. That's what I want to be. That's what I want my marriage to be. And because I do more of the visiting to the UK on maybe my second visit after that, I decided that I would go with her and the children to church one day. So I followed them to the church she was attending, KT then. And I decided I would buy a Bible. So, because I wasn't reading a Bible then, so after the service we bought a Bible. And during the service, the pastor also had what we call now a word of knowledge. He was describing somebody in the church that this is what you did yesterday, God wants you to set you free and all of that. So I said, so if you go to these churches, they can reveal your secret. So I left and saying that I won't go to this kind of church anymore. So I went back to Nigeria, but I bought a Bible and all of that. I said, okay, let me start reading the Bible. But what I was seeing there were more or less contradictions, so I stopped. John the Baptist pointed out Jesus as the Son of God. Later he was sending his disciples to go and ask him, are you the one to come? I said, this is a contradiction. So I stopped reading the Bible. But then I came back on another visit to the UK. And the day that I was going to go back to Nigeria, she shared with me that she had a dream. And that in the dream, she was going to this place with a lot of people also trooping along, and she could see the place very beautiful and all of that. When she got to the gate, they stopped her and said, "We have to check for your name." And they opened the book and looked for her name, and they couldn't find her name. And so they said she could not go inside. And she was very distraught because the place was very beautiful, and she started to weep, and she woke up. So she told me that dream, and well, I just shrugged my shoulders, but I understood within me what it meant. Like, okay, it's my name that they could not find anyway. So when I went back to Nigeria, that dream, that revelation did not leave me. I kept thinking about it. Then somebody now, in fact it was our mom, now bought a ticket for a Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship International meeting for me. And this is a meeting that many people had invited us to in the past, even when she was still at home, and we will refuse to go. So this time I accepted to go to that meeting, and it's in that meeting that I now gave my life to Jesus Christ. I think they went to, they came back to England sometimes in 1989, maybe early 1989. And that was August 18, 1990, that I gave my life to Jesus Christ.
Obviously, sir, when you went to that meeting in the United Kingdom, you said they were trying to reveal your secrets. Was there any particular secret you were afraid that was should be revealed?
There are many secrets. Of course, now, when she was not in Nigeria and I was not born again, I was going out with other women. So, and I saw that, oh, so these people can see what you're doing. All right, that's the main thing.
That was the main thing. So, was there at any point in time that she got to know this secret?
No. I won't say that. I won't classify myself as a womanizer, because I would say that on the average I'm a good boy, a good person. But now knowing what I know now, if you don't have Christ, you have the nature of the devil. So even things you don't want to do, you end up doing them. Mine will be more or less because I used to drink a lot and I used to smoke a lot. So when you drank alcohol and you are no longer in control, that's when you do anything. So so it's not like it's not what I normally do, but I do it. So she didn't find out. I had to tell her. So that was how it happened.
Why did you tell her? Because it could have remained a secret forever.
That takes us further. So the night at the meeting that I gave my heart to Jesus Christ, when the invitation was made, I understood what was being said, and I sincerely wanted to hand over my life to Jesus Christ. But also I thought about the things that I had done that my wife did not know about. And so I said to God that night that, Lord, I will surrender my life now to Jesus Christ. But you know what? All those things that I've done that my wife must not know about, she must not know. So, and I had a kind of peace with that. And so after I'd given my heart to Jesus Christ, I stopped smoking, I stopped drinking, I stopped womanizing, and I had peace. And it wasn't until about 2 years after that she and the children came back to Nigeria finally, because I asked them to come back. I've now learned enough that husband and wife shouldn't really be living apart. So I asked them to come back to Nigeria. And they came. So after she was back in Nigeria, there was another regional convention of the Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship International in another city called Ilorin. And we booked to attend that meeting. And as we set out from our base in Ibadan to Ilorin that morning, the driver was driving, both of us were at the back of the car. A thought came to my mind, which will be like 2 years after I'd given my life to Jesus Christ. A thought came to my mind that, you know what, all those things that you said that day that she must not know about, now is the time that you have to tell her yourself. I said, I'm to tell her all the things that I said she must not know about. That cannot be God, that must be the devil. So I said, no way. And we drove to Ilorin and we got to where we were going, which would have been about 2 hours drive. The thoughts did not leave me. We got there, checked into the hotel. The thought did not go away. We went for afternoon session. The thought did not go away. We came back and went for evening session. The thoughts did not go away. We went back to the hotel to sleep. The thoughts did not go away. She was sleeping. I could not sleep. The thought did not go away. So early in the morning, and I had not slept, I woke up and I began to tell her that while you and the children were in England, these are all the things that I had done. So that's how she knew.
How did she take it?
Well, at a point she began to cry and said she didn't want to hear anymore, and so we stopped. And but that was more or less the end of the meeting for us, because it was 3 days. We went through Saturday not talking to each other. Sunday we ate breakfast and checked out of the hotel, drove back to Ibadan. We still weren't talking to one another. So as soon as we got back to Ibadan, our base, and we put our stuff in the house, I said, what I was saying, I have not finished, and I need to finish. So, and I attempted to start saying what I've not said, and she refused, that she doesn't want to hear anything. And so I stopped. We still didn't talk for like 3 days, but after about 3 days, she settled down and we reconciled, and that was how we handled that.
We're out of time now, so we're going to stop here, and during our next episode, we're going to hear Sister Timika's version of the story. So tune in. Thank you.